I'm John Batchelor. Larry Kudlow, my colleague and co-host of CNBC and Kudlow Radio on the weekend, and Steve Moore of the Heritage Foundation, discussing Mrs. Clinton in New Hampshire. Mrs. Clinton made a remark today, an accurate remark, to be congratulated for pointing to a crisis in America's future. That is business formation, entrepreneurship by the millennials, the youngest members of the workforce. The facts support this observation that all new net jobs in America come from young business formation, not from seniors, not older business formation, because they tend to shed as many as they gather. In other words, they get into the status quo ante of stability. It's young businesses where the growth is. And since 2010, I'm following the Washington Post, this piece from this last winter. Since 2010, the business formation by Americans aged 20 to 34 has fallen dramatically compared to, say, the boomer generation, Larry's and my generation, or the Gen Xers, Mr. Moore. They are underperforming vastly. And Larry, I turn to you. Is there one explanation for this?
Well, probably more than one, but these kids are having trouble raising capital. They're having trouble making ends meet. You know, they're not getting big first-time jobs. A lot of them are out of the labor force altogether. It's just a whole bunch of reasons. Generally, nobody wants to take risks because they think the government is, against business. So I think that all has a lot to do with it. I mean, you need tax reform. You need regulatory reform. Actually, Hillary mentioned, you quoted her. I'll give her credit, too. She mentioned that the economy has stalled out, and she also mentioned that there's too many regulations on small businesses. I'd like to see her propose a pro-growth solution. I think it'd be great.
Steve, she said the right thing today. Mr. Ernest at the White House was tongue-tied, could not explain it, said he wanted to see the whole quote. This looks like something opened up here between the Obama administration and Mrs. Clinton's plans for an administration. Is this a positive sign, or did she get just caught off base?
Well, it is. I think it is a positive. Look, I think that Hillary's a little bit politically schizophrenic, right? On the one hand, she can't figure out whether she wants to run on the Obama record or whether she's going to run on the Clinton record. And if I were her, I certainly would run on Bill Clinton's record, not Barack Obama's record, because we had a lot of growth under Bill Clinton and a Republican Congress, and we've had very paltry growth under Barack Obama. But I would say this, that one of the things Republicans need to do to juxtapose themselves against the Democrats, especially Barack Obama, but Hillary too, is talk in a positive way about business. And Larry, I've heard you make this point so many times. It's so true. I mean, when is the last time this president said anything good about business? Small business, big business, corporations. He acts as if businesses are ATM machines, enemy combatants. And, when you have a president who says, to small businessmen, you didn't build that, and when Hillary Clinton says that businesses don't create jobs, that just creates a very negative sense among the people who do start businesses that Washington is against them.
I know. You're absolutely right. There's no sense of optimism, and he attacks business. He's anti-business. He's the most anti-business president that we've seen. I think he's much more anti-business than Jimmy Carter was. And, Reagan basically was exhorting people to be optimistic about the future and exhorting business to go out there and just take a rip at the ball. I mean, it was the exact opposite of what Obama's doing. And on the Hillary point, she is schizophrenic because you're right. She said something good today, or semi-good. But the rest of the time, I mean, I just wrote this up in my piece. She's out there, tax the rich, punish CEOs, redistribution, wage gaps between men and women, wage gaps between CEOs and employees. I mean, that's just all gibberish. It's all just identity politics that has nothing to do.
She actually speaks of confiscation, Larry. She talks boldly about confiscating profits. It makes my head swim. I think I've left the planet when I hear that.
Well, John, how does she? I don't even see how she even gets away with this message, because look, this is a woman who, for the last several years, is making $200,000 to $250,000 to give a speech. She flies around on private jets to do so. She hasn't driven a car in probably 10 years, and then she tries to sell herself as a a woman of the people. I just think she's going to have a hard time doing that. And by the way, the Wall Street Journal had an interesting statistic. She's saying, attacking CEOs for making 300 times what the average worker makes. Well, she's making 7,000 times what the average worker makes. I mean, Larry, I'd love to get $200,000 to give a speech. I don't know. Maybe that's your speaking fee these days.
Yeah, I'll tell you later how nice it is to get that kind of money. But the New York Post has it on the front cover, quid pro dough. And I just think that's just absolutely fabulous. And I know Hillary was dead broke, but she had an $8 million advance for her book. One other is a quick thing, disproving this CEO thing of 330 to 1 or whatever. Mark Perry, John, and Mark Perry of the American Enterprise did a great job. He went into the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In round numbers, not 350 companies, the biggest companies in the S&P 500, but the BLS says you have roughly 250,000 CEOs across the country, and their average pay is less than $200,000 a year. And when you plug that in, then the gap is 4 to 1, and that's about right. That's about where we should be. This idea that the CEOs, every CEO is making $20-30 million a year is just not true.
Well, then, Larry, what is who's Mrs. Clinton's audience for this? Is this the left that votes in the primaries, or is this the general election? Will she come back to the Clinton years once she has the nomination now? That's what's odd. She's not running against anybody.
Well, she may. You see the stories today. People are starting to welcome this guy O'Malley. Dick Durbin invited him to come to the Senate. The mayor of Miami, or some big Democratic politician in Miami, says that he wants O'Malley.
But he's to the left of Mrs. Clinton.
O'Malley is the man of the people too. He raised taxes 39 times in Maryland, in a state that's 2 to 1 Democratic in registration. Threw him and the Democrats out of office. I don't get the O'Malley boom, but I do think, John, she's still nervous. I mean, Hillary Clinton, I believe, gets up every morning and says, "How did I lose to this guy 8 years ago?" And I think she is hell bent against anybody getting to the left of her over the next.
Was that a mistake today, Steve, when she mentioned that small businesses are failing? Did she get off message, or was she just taunting us?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that Hillary is being pulled in two directions. Yeah. I mean, if I were Hillary's advisor, I'd say run as a pro-small business Democrat. But the Democrats, everything they're doing is anti-small business.
Well, you'll get her elected if she does that, Steve.
She's bipolar. That's the problem here. She's bipolar. Yeah. I mean, I wrote a column saying, "Hey, Hillary, why don't you run as a JFK Democrat?" Yes. Right? He cut taxes across the board
with 5% growth. Yes, of course.
5% growth. Right. Nobody expected him to do it, and when he did it, he was enormously popular.
Larry, and the reason she's not doing that is because MoveOn.org would throw her out of the party.
Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore volunteering themselves for advisor to the Hillary Clinton for Presidency campaign. I thank you very much, Steve of the Heritage Foundation, Larry Kudlow of CNBC and Kudlow Radio. I'm John Batchelor.